Hello guys, welcome back. Today's movie recap will be a romance and thriller movie from 2015 called Steel. Warning, there are spoilers ahead. The movie begins with Daniel Kruger, a 29-year-old local television news reporter. He is so skilled that he's able to interview guests who won't speak to anyone else and get them to talk about issues they had no intention of discussing. Everyone at work praises his abilities, as his show receives the highest ratings the channel has ever seen. The scene shifts to him jogging when he suddenly gets an anxiety attack and has to rush back to his car. His boss, Barb O'Neill, calls him immediately to tell him she's secured an interview for him on Thursday. She then asks him on a date, and it seems like she has a huge crush on him. He doesn't reply at first, but when she mentions she might invite another colleague, he agrees to go. Daniel returns home, where his boyfriend, Michael, visits, and they end up making love. Afterward, Daniel tells him to leave, but it seems Michael wants a more intimate moment. Daniel, however, leaves the house to join his boss for the dinner date. At the club, Daniel notices an 18-year-old high school student, Alexander, and seems immediately intrigued. He buys the kid a drink but leaves without saying anything to join his colleagues. His colleagues don't realize he's gay as they encourage him to ask the woman staring at him to dance. Instead, he leaves the club and heads to his car, where he has another anxiety attack. On the day of the interview, Daniel shows up late, causing everyone to panic, but fortunately, he arrives just in time. Before the interview begins, he has another anxiety attack and leaves his workplace. He returns home, but the attack doesn't subside right away. Eventually, the attacks stop, and he gets a voicemail from his aunt, who is worried about him and asks him to reach out. He cuts off the message before she can finish leaving her number. He starts playing with a stuffed bear and begins to rant about his anxiety attack, admitting that he's scared but doesn't know why. He then returns to the club where he meets Alexander again. Alexander seems to like Daniel and follows him into the bathroom, confessing his feelings. Daniel learns that Alexander is 18. Alexander tries to seduce Daniel, but Daniel pushes him away and leaves. Days later, Daniel gets a visit from Barb and Ryan. He refuses to open the door and tells them he's quitting. They finally leave after expressing that they miss him. Daniel realizes he's run out of groceries and decides to go shopping. However, he experiences another panic attack and ends up not getting what he needs. He returns home to find Alex outside but doesn't invite him in. Alex comes in on his own, and Daniel lets him stay while Alex talks about how boring school is. They start reminiscing about high school, but Daniel abruptly asks Alex why he's there, pointing out that he prefers to be left alone. Alex offers to make dinner but realizes Daniel only has pasta and salsa. He improvises a dish with those ingredients. Soon after, Alex successfully seduces Daniel and they end up making love. After their brief intimate moment, Alex asks why Daniel quit his job, but Daniel doesn't respond and tells Alex to leave. Alex doesn't argue and leaves, though it seems that Daniel has feelings for him too. Days later, Daniel finally leaves his apartment but tries to avoid people as much as possible. He fails and panics, rushing back indoors. He discovers that someone else has taken over his show, which deeply hurts him. So he turns off the TV. Alex returns while Daniel is ordering food. Alex suggests they go for a walk after dinner, but Daniel refuses without giving a reason. After eating, the two shower together and become intimate again. Afterward, Daniel receives a message from Michael. Alex sees this and asks who Michael is. Daniel brushes it off, saying he's just some guy. Alex, suspecting that Michael is Daniel's boyfriend, becomes upset and walks away heartbroken. Days later, Daniel begins working out at home but quickly gets bored. He decides to get groceries but ends up lying on his bed after hiring someone to get them for him. Alex visits again and prepares breakfast for both of them. During breakfast, Alex asks if Daniel's parents are proud of him. This causes Daniel to lose his appetite, and he asks Alex why he's really there. Alex doesn't answer but seductively kisses Daniel's neck, and they end up making love again. Afterward, Alex asks about Daniel's parents, but Daniel makes it clear he doesn't like talking about it. Alex respects this and then asks Daniel where he grew up, to which Daniel replies, on a farm. Later, Alex, who's still with Daniel, asks to go for ice cream because he's bored, but Daniel refuses. After much persuasion from Alex, he finally agrees. They return home later and talk about books before Alex suddenly leaves. Daniel watches him leave through the window. The next day, Alex visits again and the two prepare breakfast together. Alex suggests they go for a walk, and this time, Daniel agrees. While walking, Daniel confesses to Alex that he's afraid of other people. The couple sits on the grass as Alex asks if Daniel's mother is also afraid of others. Daniel admits that she was, explaining that she felt suffocated by people. Days later, Daniel is home alone, remembering Alex asking about his father. Daniel reflects that he and his father didn't have much to say to each other. His father wanted to teach him about life, but he was abusive. Later, the couple goes for a swim in a lake, having fun until Alex suddenly realizes he has to leave to get home in time for supper. Daniel seems dejected and mentions that he had plans for them to go grocery shopping together. Alex immediately agrees, saying it's only because he loves him. At the grocery store, Alexander remains silent. Daniel notices and asks why he isn't talking. Alex then reveals that he's upset because Daniel hasn't told him he loves him yet. This makes Daniel decide to stop shopping, but Alex insists they buy a few more things. Daniel returns to work and meets with Barb, asking for his show back. Barb tells him that the show has been doing well and the ratings haven't dropped since he left, so she refuses to give him the show back. This causes Daniel to argue, reminding her that she is where she is because of him. Barb retorts, saying she almost lost her job because of the stunt he pulled weeks ago. They argue, and Barb tells him again that he can't have his show back and that he won't even tell her what's wrong with him. She then notices how much he's shaking and calmly asks if he's okay, suggesting they call for help, but Daniel walks out. The next day, Alex visits Daniel, angry. He tells Daniel he got grounded because of him. Daniel, confused, asks why. Alex explains that he was late for supper because they went grocery shopping, and his parents were furious, so they grounded him. Daniel, still confused, tells Alex he's a great kid, but the relationship isn't working out and asks him to leave. Alex refuses, saying he ran away from home because he hates his mom and that he's quitting school to move in with Daniel. Daniel immediately tells him he can't quit school and that his mother cares about him. He suggests Alex is overreacting, which makes Alex even angrier. Alex accuses Daniel of siding with someone he's never met over him. Alex finally speaks up, calling Daniel crazy and complaining that Daniel had the perfect life but ruined it. Daniel admits that he knows and says he doesn't need anyone to remind him. Alex angrily advises him to get his life together, calling him a tragic hero and reminding him that all tragic heroes die. This annoys Daniel, who tells Alex he knows nothing. Alex counters by saying Daniel would be nowhere without him and that he can't do anything on his own. Daniel warns Alex not to flatter himself and says he'll figure it out. Alex disagrees, reminding Daniel that he hasn't even tried to do anything on his own and calling him a puppy. Daniel shouts at Alex to leave, but Alex refuses, walking closer and trying to touch him. He tells Daniel that it's all in his head and that he needs to start figuring things out for himself. Daniel pushes him away and screams that he doesn't want to. Alex then asks Daniel to sleep with him, and Daniel agrees. Their lovemaking seems to calm them down a bit. Afterward, Daniel tells Alex again that his mother only grounded him because she loves him and wants what's best for him. He advises Alex to go home and apologize to her. Alex agrees to do it, but on one condition. He asks Daniel to take him to the farmhouse where he grew up. Daniel pauses, thinking for a while, but says nothing. The scene shifts to Alex and Daniel at the farmhouse. Alex is very excited to see it and eagerly jumps on a swing, but Daniel doesn't seem as thrilled. After a while, Daniel decides he wants to leave, but Alex stops him and kisses him, convincing Daniel to stay. They continue exploring the farmhouse and Alex walks into the building, which is now up for sale, while Daniel remains outside, feeling scared and unsure. He finally decides to go inside after Alex persuades him. The building is completely covered in plastic and dusty, indicating that no one has lived there for a long time. Daniel sits on a chair and flashes back to his childhood. We see a younger Daniel covering his eyes as his mother surprises him with a stuffed dog. He snaps out of the flashback and goes upstairs to meet Alex. When he reaches his room, he flashes back to his childhood again. This time, we see a young girl, presumably his sister, peering through the keyhole of his room. She opens the door and finds Daniel naked with another boy. He snaps out of the memory and begins to have a panic attack. He calls for Alex, but gets no response. So he opens the door to his room. The flashback continues, showing the girl backing away in disgust before running downstairs to tell their parents. After this, we see Daniel on his way to the doctor's office with his parents while he protests, saying he doesn't want to go. His mother also tries to convince his father not to take him to the doctor, but his father refuses. Daniel throws a tantrum, which frustrates his father, leading to an accident that kills his father and injures his mother. Alex arrives and Daniel snaps out of the flashback. Concerned, Alex hugs him as Daniel breathes heavily in fear. The couple leaves the farmhouse, and on the way home, Daniel tells Alex more about his family and how his father died. His mother, who was fatally injured, died 30 minutes later. He recalls that his mother didn't take her eyes off him. He explains how they got into the accident, noting that his father took his eyes off the road. Daniel also takes his eyes off the road momentarily, looking back at Alex for a long time until Alex begs him to stop and reminds him that he doesn't want to die. This causes Daniel to refocus on the road. He starts to cry and has to pull over, and Alex pacifies him. Later, Daniel visits his aunt for the first time in a long while. He finds her in her garden with flowers and calls out her name, as she doesn't seem to notice him at first. She is very happy to see him and says how much she's missed him. She offers to make him tea, and he agrees. She tells him she watches his show, but he informs her that he's no longer the host. She asks what he's doing now, and he replies that he's trying to figure things out. He then mentions that he went back to the farmhouse and thanked her for everything she's done for him. His aunt tells him she loved having him and his sister stay with her. Daniel asks about his sister and learns that she's having a baby next month and that she misses him. Daniel confesses that he no longer blames his sister. His aunt then asks if he still blames himself, but he doesn't respond. She tells him that everyone in the family could blame themselves for the accident, but it wouldn't change anything. She reminds him that his mother wouldn't be happy if he continued blaming himself, and that he survived for a reason. She encourages him to stay strong for his mother. After their brief but emotional reunion, Daniel leaves. Alex and Daniel's relationship continues to blossom, and Daniel gets a new job offer. The couple returns to the lake for a swim. After their short swim session, Alex asks Daniel what he wants to do. Daniel tells him he wants to feel free inside, to be able to share emotions, whether happiness or sadness, without them turning into a disaster. In the next scene, the couple is at home, lying naked on the bed. Alex suggests a place where Daniel can go shopping, and Daniel agrees to go with him. They go to the farmer's market where they have a lot of fun, and Daniel seems to prefer it over the grocery stores he's used to. They return home, and just as they're about to go inside, Alex remembers he left something in the car and goes to get it. However, before he can cross to the other side of the street, he gets hit by a vehicle speeding by. Daniel runs to meet Alex, who's now injured on the floor, bleeding and breathing slowly. The driver of the vehicle also stops and gets down, afraid that he might have killed someone. Alex reminds Daniel that he loves him and tells him that he can now do it by himself. He promised to always be with him inside and passed away. He begins to ask that someone call the emergency services, but it seems like no one can see Alex except him, as the driver asks if he's okay and tells him there's nobody there. The driver tells him that he almost ran Daniel over, meaning that Alex didn't exist and is only a fragment of Daniel's imagination. Days later, Daniel sits outside his apartment, sulking. He eventually goes to the lake where he and Alex spend most of their time, trying to imagine that Alex is still there. Later, Daniel returns to Barb and asks her to be his producing manager, and she agrees. Daniel continues doing the things he and Alex used to do together and finally finds the courage to walk the streets without experiencing his usual panic attacks. Thank you for watching. Remember to like the video and subscribe. Take care, and I'll see you next time.